Scream 2 follows up the original 1 year later, with Sidney Prescott trying to adapt to her college life with her unwanted fame when an all-new Ghostface begins acting out a real-life sequel. What's up, everyone, and welcome back, or just welcome if it's your first time checking out the channel. Today, we are going to be continuing our Wes Craven and Scream review series with Scream 2. If you're a fan of the franchise, or just horror movies in general, we are going to be continuing to cover the entire series leading up to the release of Scream 7 at the end of the month. So, think about hitting that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any of the rest of them. Now, as far as Scream 2 goes, it's not as good as the original, but for a sequel that came out barely a year later, it is impressive how much of a blast this movie is. It expands on the meta-commentary, it keeps up some of that high energy going on, and it continues giving Sidney a fantastic character arc. So, without wasting any more time, let's just get right into it with the upside. And right off the bat, one of the smartest choices in Scream 2 is just changing that meta-commentary just so slightly, expanding on what they did in the original, but this time now focusing primarily on horror sequels, which is kind of the same as what it was doing before, but it adds just enough of a new flavor that it kind of keeps it fresh. While not everything lands with the precision of the original, it's still clever, it's still fun, and it's still really self-aware. Scream 2 continues the trend of these movies with just having a solid cast of fun characters. I don't think it's as iconic or as memorable as the cast in the original, but there are still some real highlights here. Our returning cast is all great. Sidney is even more hardened and even more of a badass this time around. Clearly, she's still dealing with the trauma of the events of the past 2 years that happened to her, and the film really never lets you forget that, while also not overdoing the grief and the trauma going on, like a lot of movies tend to nowadays, at least. She's just continuing to evolve, she's even more resourceful, she's even more of a fighter, she's just... If in the first one she wasn't taking any shit, here she's taking even less shit, if that was possible. She just continues to be my favorite final girl of all time. The Dewey and Gale relationship arc, I think, really works well as the heart of this franchise, and I think they expand upon that very well in this film. I like how Dewey is a lot more bitter and antagonistic towards Gale for how he was portrayed in her book. I like that he takes on the big brother role protector of Sidney and Randy, and I like that they add a lot more depth to Gale's character without really taking away any of her edge. She's still kind of that self-focused, self-promoting, kind of a bitch, but, you get more layers to her here as she becomes more and more attached to these people. Jamie Kennedy is once again a blast as Randy here. I like how he's kind of even a bit more turned up this time around. His conversation with Dewey about figuring out the suspects is one of the best parts of the movie to me. I love their chemistry. I love his comedic energy that he brings. Liev Schreiber gets a massive upgrade in screen time with a lot more meat on the bones for the role of Cotton. I absolutely love how they utilize him here, where he's not even really mad that he was falsely imprisoned for murder. He's just trying to figure out how he can squeeze every ounce out of this into giving him some newfound fame. I absolutely love him as an actor, and it's really nice that he's just not like a background item this time around, and I am so glad that he didn't turn out to be the killer. I think the way they utilized him was perfect here. Even with the new cast, we have some standouts, particularly with Timothy Olyphant. He is one of my favorite actors of all time, and even with the limited screen time that he gets, I think he just squeezes everything he can out of him, and he shines every time he's on screen. He does fine as the friend to the boyfriend kind of concerned person, but he absolutely crushes it in the third act when he gets to go full-blown off-the-rails psycho. His motive is absolutely crazy and out there, but I actually kind of dig that he was going to just try and blame it all on the movies. And I love that he just seems to enjoy tormenting the fuck out of Sidney when he's talking shit to her after he reveals himself. I like that whole back and forth between them, too. Sarah Michelle Gellar's presence alone raises the tension in this movie because she is somebody that you feel like should be safe, but she's absolutely not. And I like that this movie plays with that, where you see someone you recognize, so you kind of, oh, well, they're going to be safe because they're more well known than these other people. No, they're getting it, and they're getting it quick. And I loved her as this, not really ditzy, because she's really proactive, like during the film class arguments and stuff. But I like her as this sorority girl, and I really like the chase through the house that she gets, too. Joel, the cameraman, might be the smartest character in horror movie history. He shows up, he sees murders start to happen, he decides he wants no part of it, and he gets the fuck out until the killers are taken care of and shows back up at the end. Hilarious. He might not get a lot to do in the movie, but I love the utilization of that. I've always enjoyed Jerry O'Connell, so it's really nice to see him here. I like the whole boyfriend fake-out aspect of it, where the killer's repeating the events of Woodsboro, so it could very likely be that the killer is also the boyfriend of Sydney, just like in Woodsboro. But I like that it reveals that he's just a genuinely nice and caring dude. Absolutely fuck that cafeteria scene, though. I don't need that in my life. I could live without that. But I do think it's nice that he's willing to embarrass himself in front of a room full of people just to try and show Sydney that he actually does care about her. It's almost impossible to top the original's opening scene, but I think this one they do very well. It's still really fun and clever and chaotic in its own way, although it does require some leaps in logic when you think about it. But the brutality of killing someone in a theater full of people who are so wild and rambunctious that it just looks like it's part of a publicity stunt and nobody realizes until it's way too late I think is just genius. I think it's still one of the better openings in this franchise. The chase scenes here are still excellent. As I mentioned before, I really like the Sarah Michelle Gellar sorority house chase. I think that's really well done. The only disappointing part of that I have is I kind of wish she put up a bit more of a fight. I get that she's just this regular old sorority girl, but, I mean, come on, dude. It's Buffy. Come on. But if that wasn't enough, we also get the Sydney chase very shortly after the Sarah Michelle Gellar sequence, along with Gale getting pursued in the sound studio, which, to me, is still one of the best set pieces in this entire franchise. The tension is just insane. I love that it leads to the Dewey fake-out death. If they were going to kill him there, I think that would have been an amazing send-off for him, although I'm not mad that they kept him around. I genuinely like both of the killer reveals in this movie. I know people complain about Mickey disappearing at the 40-minute mark and not popping back up until he takes his mask off, and I agree with that. I wish they had used him more efficiently. But his performance is just so great, and the motives really fit that spirit of the franchise's more meta look at media and violence. I don't know how it would have worked out for him, but I'm eternally intrigued to see how Mickey's dream trial would have played out. And while Mickey definitely could have benefited with a bit more to do, I think the way they use Mrs. Loomis here is absolutely perfect. She's used just enough that you may suspect she is a killer, but there's no way you see that identity reveal coming until they tell you. Laurie Metcalf just does a fantastic job of coming off as legitimately insane with just her eyes. She has, like, the perfect psycho crazy eyes going on here. And I absolutely love that after Mickey pops back up for his final scare just to get riddled with bullets, Sydney does not even give Mrs. Loomis the chance to slightly move. She just comes over, double taps her in the head, and calls it a day. That is absolutely badass final girl status. And I do love the way that Cotton gets to show up at the end as the unexpected hero who does save Sydney while being a bit questionable with his tactics. This is just a man who loves the attention, and honestly, to me, he's fucking earned it. I think this film does a very good job at giving both him and Sydney a fitting end to the story. Another thing that I like is the evolving change of scenery throughout this series. I think the college setting definitely adds some scope and some scale to it over the small town, the high schools, and a couple of houses of the original. The pacing in this movie is genuinely tight, like a tiger. There's no lulls between set pieces, it's just a constant stream of character work, plot advancement, and tension going on. Once again, as you would expect with Wes Craven, this is just excellently directed. It's just, even his bad movies, I think the directing is always pretty well done. And as I said with the original, I do have a ton of childhood nostalgia for the original trilogy, and that goes along with Scream 2, as you could figure. It's just pure comfort food to me. It has a lot of those late 90s vibes that I like without being too overly cheesy, while definitely riding the line a couple of times. Now on to the mixed, and the big one here is that I love that they killed Randy, but I fucking hate that they killed Randy. I don't hate that they killed off a fan-favorite character because it raises and reinforces the stakes of the franchise, but I do wish that we just had a bit more time with him, or at least had him to have the potential to fill the love interest role for Sydney and then get killed off. And the movie definitely feels like quite a bit of its humor disappears once he is taken out of the equation. While I do like the scene in of itself, I wish they had a better death sequence for him. I like how it's executed and everything. It's just the shot of his body after when they find it. It always looked like he was like splattered with ketchup or something. It looked a little too goofy for what was supposed to be a tragically serious moment for this series. And honestly, they flirt with the idea of making him look suspicious, only to then do nothing with it. And I've always wondered what it would have worked out as and looked like if he would have been one of the killers. Like, he made it through the first one, and the next one, after not getting the attention of Sydney, he just snaps. Like, I'm eternally curious to see how that would work out. As is, they briefly put in a few moments to try and shade his character a little bit, but it adds up to nothing before he makes his grand exit. They also introduce the idea that this killer is trying to recreate Woodsboro, trying to duplicate the original killings with, like, the name scheme and everything. And then it gets immediately dropped the second it's brought up by Gale at the police station. It just feels like one of those things that was like a leftover of a previous draft that just somehow made it through. Speaking of previous drafts, it's no little known secret that this script got leaked and had to be reworked beyond belief. The original plan was actually to have Derek and Hallie be the killers, being mentored by Mrs. Loomis instead of Mickey. So given that they had to come up with new twists and reveals, I think that they did a really good job of coming up with new stuff on the fly, trying to make it still coherent while keeping people on their toes so they're not like, oh hey, I read this online that this was going to happen. And it works well, but I just wish that they had kept Hallie as one of the ghost faces as well. That would have really freshened up the ending a bit, as a psycho who decided to get so close to her that she's her best friend just to fuck with her. Her and Mickey as a pair of new killers being guided as Mrs. Loomis, I think just would have been just enough of a new flavor being added on to really help boost this movie up just a couple more notches. Everything notwithstanding, the motives and reveals that we did get, I think, were really well done. And my last one for the mixed is that they say that the sequels need a bigger body count and more brutality, and this movie only kind of partially delivers on that. I'm not a huge gore hound, but it would have been nice if they would have added a bit more variety and mixed up the way people are getting killed. You get the cop with the pole through the head, that's neat. But a lot of it's just kind of the same old, same old. I wish they had increased the carnage a bit more. And now on to the downside. And first off, unfortunately, there are quite a few too many leaps in logic for me that require a don't think about it too hard type of thing. Like, you have Omar Epps in the bathroom stall. How did the killer know? And plan that out. You got the killer knowing where the police car was going to be and that it would stop at a red light so he could attack it. You have Sydney showing back up to the theater. Although I love the setting of the theater. The way she ends up there and they just knew she was going to be there and Derek's tied up and everything. Whatever. It's not enough to tank the movie for me, but it does require some of that suspension of disbelief, and it starts to push on the threshold just a little too much for my liking. I really enjoy the cop car sequence, but the fact that you got both Hallie and Sydney climbing over an unconscious Ghostface over the front seat to get out, and neither of them stop to either just finish off the killer or take off his mask. No, absolutely not. It's a very dumb thing, especially for a character as smart as Sydney. Yeah, she does decide to turn around and go back, but the fact that she didn't just fucking strangle his ass from the back seat right after they crashed. No. It's tense for sure, but it's definitely one of the weaker moments for Sydney in this movie. For having the whole police station focused on Sydney and protecting her and getting these detectives to guard her, it feels like there should have been a bigger showdown between Ghostface and the cops. I'm not saying they should have had a fucking whole campus shootout or something. And I do, like I said, I do like the cop car sequence, but that's it for the police presence in this movie. It just kind of feels a bit lackluster when they're constantly talking about how cops are everywhere. It just feels like they were there to just add a couple extra bodies to the kill count. And I'm willing to admit this is a tiny, minuscule nitpick, but the fact that Ultra movie geek Randy incorrectly quotes Aliens to correct Joshua Jackson, that just pains my fucking soul. Who did not look that through? And lastly, this movie just needed a lot more Mickey in it. Not only because I love Timothy Olyphant, although that is part of it, I'm not gonna lie. But just giving him more screen time would have just helped that reveal of Mickey just pack more of a punch instead of, hey, he's the guy who was there for a couple scenes and then he fucked off for 45 minutes and now he's here with a knife. Instead of being the super tense moment when he unmasks, it's just kind of oh well, that makes sense, I guess. Even when he's on screen, he just doesn't do a whole lot besides him planting the seed about Derek to Sydney at the hospital. I do like that. I just wish they had more stuff like that, having him be more proactive in his scheme. And that's it for the bottom line. Despite not reaching the brilliance of the original, Scream 2 is still one of the best slasher sequels out there to this day. It's smart and self-aware while delivering great chase sequences, entertaining killers, and a Sidney Prescott who does not give a fuck and just keeps getting stronger. It's fun, it's sharp, and it surprisingly holds up really well for a sequel that was rushed out to follow an absolute classic in a single year. This is a fantastic flick. And that's it for me. Thank you all for watching. Let me know down below what were your thoughts on Scream 2. While you're down there, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on any more videos like this, especially as we continue to finish up the Scream franchise. We'll be back at it again soon with a video for Valentine's Day, as well as continuing the Scream franchise, as I keep saying throughout this video. I'll try not to be as annoying with it next time. But until next time, see ya!